Are we kicking it off officially then?
Yeah, let's kick it off officially.
All right, let me find my, my little body starter. Honestly, super excited to be here and chatting with you. Some people wanted us to meet in like some parking lot and just beat each other up.
Right.
And I don't know, like, I don't know how you feel about it, but I think us streamers, we see how transparent these things are and how people just want to fan the flames. And I like to think that we're above it.
Yeah, like, it's literally just two opinions on a game. So, yeah, I don't really see the animosity and all this kind of stuff.
Well, honestly, I think that out of the way, everything else is going to be a lot nicer. Because if there was anything personal, that would be very sad and very ugly.
I don't know why they would be. I don't even know you.
But no, that doesn't matter, dude. Like, someone watches me for 5 minutes and someone watches you for 10 minutes and they already think that, they know everything about us. They understand, they want to white knight for me. They want to protect your honor as if you were some, helpless little damsel. And these ugly things happen. And I don't know if I can speak on your behalf, but we don't want that.
No. I've definitely seen that. I think a lot of DBD community like drama, honestly. I think they like to push it.
I don't think that's like an exclusive feature of DBD. I think that's like everywhere. But
yeah, that's true.
It is a lot of immaturity that shows up at times like this. Yeah. So what do you think about the idea of going from like the broader terms of like general balance in the game and then getting to the specifics? Does that seem like a good idea to you?
Sure, man. As I said, I'm just jumping in, and whatever you talk about, we'll talk about.
All right. So the current state of the game when it comes to balance. Is it tilted heavily towards the killer side? Is it definitely on the survivor side? Is it
Depends.
in between? Like, obviously, we're going to say depends, obviously, but where would you say you stand in general? Because the impression I have from watching your stuff, every now and then, is that you seem to think that, and perhaps I'm misrepresenting you, so, go on. But you seem to think that if played at the highest level, survivors are just unstoppable and killer is basically helpless. So I would really like to have your take on this. Go on.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the tournaments show it. As long as, and it isn't just the tournaments, just looking at the variables, looking at how fast gen speed can be.
Right.
When you see the tournaments, I mean, you can see the killers in the tournaments. Like, you can see that they don't believe that they can go out and get these hooks, right? They get one person and they're like, right, I can't continue to chase because if I do that, the gens are just going to fly. So I'm going to try and get one person out of the game so there's less people on gens. And then I'm going to maybe get another. And then maybe if I've just done that quick enough, I might get one, like a third at best with maybe no ed. And that's kind of the best players. That's like the best killers who should be ultra confident. That's how they're thinking. So if you're thinking that way, they must feel that it must be in the survivor's favor. Because if it wasn't, they'd just go out. They'd go out and go for all the chases, right?
I think we're not painting the whole picture. Like, you haven't said anything wrong. There's definitely tournaments where a killer will wrap up one chase, get that person on the hook, and then realize, okay, I've lost basically 3 generators by now. I'm gonna have to do damage control, and I'm gonna have to camp this person to death. And even that doesn't work sometimes because there's perks like decisive, camaraderie, which is popular in tournaments, borrowed time, and so on.
Well, they will hook trade though. So worst case scenario, they'll just get free hooks given to them. It's not interesting.
But there are also tournaments that are entirely based around hooks. And in tournaments like this, hooks escape, gens completed, you do not have such an incentive to camp it out.
Yeah, that's good.
And how do you feel this translates to the actual numbers of the game at large outside of tournaments? Because we could be talking about tournaments, but we know that it's a very minuscule part of the player base and the community.
Always is though.
Sorry?
It always is, really. The top percent, the people who play the game at the best, usually is the lower percentage.
All right. So how would you feel? Like, okay, you're basically, if I understand that correctly, is survivors are so strong that you can immediately tell by looking at the top levels in tournaments that the killers are conditioned to just get a few hooks, and that shows that survivors are very strong. How do you feel about general matches in the overall game outside of competitive? Do you think it's the same?
Well, I think the matchmaking's a mess. So you mostly, especially with all the newcomers, you're mostly going against people who aren't playing that efficient. So you can go for these 12 hooks and stuff like that.
Right, but how do you explain then the disparity between this idea that survivors have it really easy and the killer has to basically try the hardest to get one kill, maybe secure two, with the fact that if we look at the statistics, killers, even like the lowest killers, get 2 kills per game, and some of them get more. Like Freddy, for example, has an average of like 66%, like across the game, not even like rank 1 or anything where I think it can go higher. But basically, any Freddy, like the average Freddy, will go into a game and he will kill 2 out of every 3 survivors. So how do you think? Yeah, exactly, on average, of course. How do you think? What do you think explains the difference between what you're saying and what happens in the game? Is it just because the survivors are bad, or what's going on?
Well, because of averages, we all know when you are new to this game, the killer dominates, and there's more people who are new to the game. So, just thinking about it logically, you know, there's going to be more 4-mans at the lower end, and that's just going to push into the higher end. Even at rank 1, you still have very chill people because it's so easy to rank up.
Okay, I still don't see the connection though. You're saying that when you're new to the game, the killer dominates.
Well, yeah, like if you don't play this game very efficiently, the killer will dominate. Yeah,
but killers, like if you look at the statistics of like
the statistics
Sorry?
The statistics say Nurse is the worst killer. She has the least kills.
But like, exactly then. Like, are we going to say that we like how do you want to go about this exactly? If we are we going to balance the game around the general experience, or are we going to balance the game around the statistics? What do you think? Like, do you want to go for like the top percentage competitive tournament level players, or do you want to keep the balance in a way that on average the overall population of the game has something going for them?
I think ideally you want to balance for the people who are playing the game well, but by doing that, you don't want to hurt the people who are playing it badly. You can do things like that. Let's just say, like, one example. You could change a tile, right? You could change a tile where only good players would take advantage of and bad players wouldn't. It would only impact good players and it wouldn't do anything to bad players. That's just one example. So ideally, you want to balance for the people who know what they're doing, which doesn't impact the people who don't. That's the ideal balance that you want. And that's what most games try to do, I feel.
But I honestly feel like that is exactly kind of what this game does. There are so many buildings and so many structures in Dead by Daylight. What I know that a survivor with 5,000 hours can run me there 5 minutes. Can run me there 5 minutes if they want to. Yeah, and a baby survivor will go down in 10 seconds after like a quick mind game. So that's in a way that's exactly what the game already has, and yet we're still complaining.
No.
Wouldn't you say so?
No. You're saying what it doesn't have. You're saying that these loops have 2 massive differences. You're saying that a bad player will go down at it and a good player will keep at it for like 5 minutes or whatever. What I'm saying is you change it where the good player doesn't stay there for 5 minutes. They stay there for a good... You want it... This is kind of a bit of a tangent. This is going to tiles. This was just an example. But you want it where there's gameplay for both the killer and survivor at high level and low level. At low level, there'll always be gameplay for killer and survivor because they don't know what they're doing. But at high level, you're going to start losing that with gold pallets and things like that because there's no gameplay. There's no gameplay for the killer. But this is a bit of a tangent. It was just one example I'm saying where you want to balance for the higher level without impacting the lower level.
Like, I understand that, and I understand how you're skeptical of statistics, and I think I'm on you with that, but we do still need to look at them. Because, like, you can just look at statistics in your own games, for example. How do you feel this game should be balanced around so that you had an average of 2 kills? Do you think that would ever happen? That this game could be balanced in such a way that you would have an average of 2 kills? Would you want that?
I wouldn't base it on kills. There's too many variables. I'd base it on hooks.
But Okay, so
I think if you push this game where the incentive is hooks, I think this is literally my stance.
Okay.
If you push this game where it's all about hooks, not the kills, I think it goes in a healthier direction.
I think that we'll need to talk about that kind of separately.
Okay.
And maybe it's a good time now to dive into it.
Yeah.
Because we're kind of switching topics. But before maybe we talk about the hooks and the kills, how do you feel about gen speeds in general? Do you think this is entirely what we've been talking about now? Is it more about tiles? Is it more about gen speeds? How do you feel the gen speeds are in the game right now?
Gen speeds is a hard one because is it the speed? Is it regression? Is it the map size? It's something. Obviously, we know that gen speeds are too quick, but we don't know why. We don't know if it's because it's 80 seconds. We don't know if it's because of the slowdown. We don't know if it's the early game. You know, we don't know. We don't know exactly why, but we do know that you can, as a killer, down people very quickly, and all 5 gens will be done before you can hook everyone. Like they will be, even if you are downing them and they are doing everything wrong at every loop. They can do them gens if they glue to them, and that's kind of problematic, right?
Well, yeah, but like I think that's kind of dodging. Like you're basically just saying this is a very complex question.
It is.
And I'm asking you, do you think the gen if it was up to you, let's say you're DBD dev tomorrow, would you immediately change gen speeds? What I'm trying to get at, or do you think other factors?
I would play around with PTBs and gather statistics from them PTBs by doing different things, like, you know, maybe a map size change, maybe an early game collapse, as they did mention they were going to do. See what that does.
Yeah,
maybe when the killer kicks a gen, it regresses at 200%, and people get confused by this. 200% of normal regression, so that would be half of a solo survivor, just so people know, because some people think like, what, regresses 2 times faster than a survivor? Like, no, that's not what 200% is. So yeah, half a survivor, you know, things like this.
I honestly think that particular idea of like adding regression, because you did make a tweet some time ago. I'm sorry if I'm hijacking the conversation right now. Maybe suggesting that a built-in ruin would help the game.
Yeah.
How? Could you explain that to me?
So this is something which will obviously be controversial, I feel.
Okay. You're obviously not talking just take the current ruin and slap it default on every killer. That's not what you're saying.
No, right. So the idea, right? So this is just one idea. Okay. Like, this isn't the idea, as I've said. Like, kicking the gen is another idea. This is one of the more controversial ones, which people will just be like, well, what the hell? But whatever, it's just the same as the other ideas I said. But if you want to talk about this, sure. So this idea is, how do we incentivize killers to get away from hooks? Why would a killer go away from a hook when they can stay there and get a kill, right? So this is the whole idea. It isn't just one thing. So the idea is, and obviously this probably won't happen, but it's just when I'm kind of
I just want to understand that it's okay.
Yeah, cool. What happens if there were no progression on hook? So the killer standing there gets nothing, but the killer moving to gens actually gets regression by pushing them away, incentive to move away from the hook, and gets rewarded. That's the idea. I'm not saying it needs to be put straight into the game or whatever, but that. So
maybe make the survivor timer on the hook not 1 minute, but like a very long time. Or an indefinite time, and then add in like a built-in ruin. But like,
they don't even need a time limit. Like, they could have it where if the killer stands there, it's never going to go down.
All right.
And then you could say, well, then survivors could run around there. Yeah, then he gets them, and then he hooks them. They've run in front of his face.
I don't know. That makes sense.
He'll incent. Like, my whole thing is, when I play survivor, I really enjoy chase. Right, I really enjoy getting chased and stuff. When I go against one of these killers who's like trying to just get kills, it's so boring. I'm either slugged, 1 hooked, 2 hooked. I can see that they're waiting. Like, there's like a survivor on a hook who's got like, you know, 30 seconds until the next stage, so they'll hover around there just for that 30 seconds to get them.
Yeah, because they're not confident they can go out and do something better across the map.
And the game doesn't give them that confidence, because if you do push someone away from a gen, you don't have ruin or something, that gen's going to be done anyway. Like, you can push them away for like 10 seconds. That gen will be done in like 2 seconds.
It's very strange, because while I agree with that point, I think the suggestion of adding some kind of built-in ruin would actually hurt this idea. It would actually make it easier for killers to hover around. Like, picture this, okay?
Yeah.
I down a Claudette, I put her between a few gens, and now I have built-in ruin, even if it's weaker than current ruin. What am I gonna do? I'm just gonna stay there and just scare survivors of gens a little bit while I camp. And now the gens are slowly going down, and it's gonna benefit me. Like, I'm gonna slug another guy, I'm gonna leave him on the ground, I'm gonna slug another guy, I'm gonna leave him on the ground, I'm gonna chase the other guy, wait for an unbreakable, and just, you know, waste time and stall because I know the gens are slowly regressing in the background. In fact, in tournaments, the best time to, you know, when survivors and killers are playing really, really hard for the win, the best times to camp people is when you have ruin up. Because someone comes for the rescue, you slap them away, now they have to heal, now someone else who was on a gen needs to come, and then they let go of a gen as well, so now you have every gen slowly regressing. So, like, while I agree that we should incentivize killers for, like, to get away from hooks, and that's a great idea, I think the idea of a built-in ruin would actually completely hurts this concept, because it's just literally rewarding you for stalling the survivors rather than actually sealing the deal. Now, like, an alternative idea would be to maybe give a default pop goes the weasel. Because for you to activate a pop, you need to actually go there. So you could nerf pop and add in a base 5 or 10% or whatever to a normal kick after a hook, say. And then after a hook for 45 seconds, your next kick, this is a default thing, will hurt 10% of a generator. And what pop does, it simply turns that from 20 to 25, or sorry, for 10 to 20 or whatever.
Yeah, I get that.
So I think, you know, when you say, oh, let's make a baseline ruin, like, lots of people immediately dismiss it because they're like, okay, yeah, buff killers, blah, blah, blah. They don't want to listen to any details. Yep. And maybe some other people also don't like it because it encourages the killer to just stall and have the gens regress. And I'm sure you've been in these games where the killer knows they have ruin, they slug you, they keep an eye on the they keep someone on the hook, and they just play really, really scummy, not really chasing, not really doing anything, just being a territorial creature around the hook, and just having the game slowly go their way. So,
but
okay,
what happens if the game starts rewarding hooks as well as that? So, doing that slugging technique,
right?
If you were to do that, even though, you know, they can crawl away and you can't keep picking them up, like, eventually they're going to wiggle off and get away anyway. So there is counterplay to that in general anyway.
Okay.
Even like, that's an extreme as well. Like, that's like the most you could abuse it. And even with that, oh shit, I've lost train of thought.
Don't worry, take your time. You were saying, what if the killers are rewarded for hooking?
Oh yeah, even with that, that will only net you a few hooks. So if you are rewarded with hooks,
right,
then you're not going to want to do that because you won't get many of them. So you're more incentivized once again to push. But as I said, that idea with the kick you said, like, I said that, like, the kick thing, like, this ruin idea, it's just one idea. Yeah. The whole thing is coming up with ideas which solve the most uninteresting thing with the game. You know, like with tournaments and stuff, especially when it's with kills, that is not a good light to put DBD in. Like, the game could be way more interesting to watch.
I do feel honestly that you should watch more tournaments.
Oh, okay.
Because I feel like there are some of them that you would generally not say this about. Because I have seen a bunch of tournaments. Now, unfortunately, the tournament community in DBD is, like, beyond tiny. So, you know, I don't blame anyone for not being in the know. And I myself don't watch all of them. But there's a lot of interesting strategies that go on. There's games where there's tons of hooks. There's rule sets that are very well made to encourage, you know, back and forth. All the rules have holes. You know, if you incentivize hooks, then survivors never trade. And then they just, you know, do gens and escape. If you incentivize kills, then, you know, everything has a downside to it. And almost any tournament I've seen, the rules have at least one thing about them that kind of sucks. But that's the name of the game. One thing that I do have an issue with, and we're probably just getting more into the hooks versus kills debate, is that it's not really you that controls the amount of hooks that survivors give you. It's usually mostly them. Like, if we're going to make a game revolve around hooks, you gotta realize that survivors are the ones that are in control. You can have a game with 4 survivors where one of them never shows up. never, ever, ever shows up. They are always with Spine Chill hiding in a corner. They will be the last one to die if you ever find them and they don't get a hatch. And then there's a guy that will just kill himself on the second hook. And then there's a guy that will just, you know, disconnect and refuse to participate. There are so, like, when I tried to play for hooks that one day, like going with your mindset of like, okay, you know, let's go for 12 hooks as possible. If not, well, too bad. I realized just how badly survivors don't actually want to play the game like that sometimes. I would have people right off the hook chase me because they have BT and they have DS, and it's like, oh, come on, get me, come on, get me.
But can I say,
yeah, go ahead.
You talk about people hiding and all these things, but that's very inefficient. So if people are doing that, you go after everyone else.
Well, yeah, but like, think about it. Think about it.
Get a lot of hooks overall.
For the game to be more balanced and more fun, and for your idea of like reward and hooks, the killer would need to be rewarded for hooking survivors, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we would shift from a meta of what do the survivors do now in general? Do gens as fast as possible, use second chance perks, any of them they have, to extend chase as much as possible, use second chance perks to trade at hooks, and then yeah, exactly, and then get the hell out. Yeah. If the killer had a speed boost for hooking all the survivors once, for example, then the new strategy would be to have one survivor never, ever, ever, you know, be found. And if the game was balanced around multiple hooks, what you would have, I'm not joking, you would have people with Deliverance waiting for 59 seconds and then unhooking themselves. And people with Camaraderie just hanging 94 seconds on the hook. Like, I feel like people would develop strategies to not give you that. And it would just be the natural progression of the game. And then we would complain about, you know, about that instead. So, I do...
With the Deliverance, though, I don't know why that doesn't give you a hook. You could still hook them again.
No, what I'm trying to say is that we would go from trying to stay alive at all costs and do gens as quickly as possible and prolong chases as much as possible. We would go from that to, okay, what does the killer get for hooking? What kind of reward does he get? How do we play around that and give him the least amount? You know, like you would have a Dwight that gets unhooked by a Claudette. And then the Dwight would not want you to hook the Claudette. Instead, he would take a hit with BT. He would take another hit for the Claudette. He would make you hit his DS. We would switch to this other mentality. And if you're like, oh well, all the hooks are treated equally. All the hooks, like every time you hook a survivor, we're gonna slow down the game a bit. So the killer, then it would be a matter of how much you can get away with. Because if getting multiple hooks slows down the game for you, then the strategy is going to be to immediately try to rehook survivors as much as you can. So you would also have killers that are just going to be like, okay, this guy got unhooked, I'm going to tunnel him immediately, and I'm going to put him back on. He doesn't have, there's no obsession, there's no DS. Let's just hook immediately again. And
but one thing though, you are using extreme, which is completely fine. You can, but you can also do that for kills.
Okay.
Which would obviously just be slugging everyone into a one hook. And I genuinely think the worst case scenario of the hooks, the most extreme of the hooks, would still be more interesting than one hooking everyone into a 4K, which is the extreme, like face camping Bubba, right?
Right. Yeah, I completely understand that. Ideally, then, what would your reward be for hooking multiple survivors and staying away from them? Because we know that the rank system right now, at least in theory, punishes you for staying close to hooks. If there's no one nearby and you're just standing there, you're going to lose quote-unquote pip points or whatever you want to call them. That, I don't know if you agree, but that in my experience means absolutely nothing. No. If a killer wants to camp, they will camp.
Oh.
Right? But...
I think the emblem system's idea is actually good. I think the execution of it is terrible.
I do agree to a degree with that, yeah.
Yeah, I do think the idea to incentivize positive, healthy gameplay, you know, survivors need to go for hooks to help the teammates out. Killers need to go for chasers, getting downs, getting multiple hooks once again. Very good idea, but the kind of execution of it is very flawed. They need to look into a lot of different things with that. Also, well, I guess that's moving on to the MMR thing as well. Like whatever we do.
I find it complicated because it's kind of strange that both sides could win. Because you could theoretically have a game, I suppose, where you know, the survivors do all pretty good, and they all pip up or get good emblem points, and the killer does pretty good, and he also ranks up.
Yeah,
so,
I don't find that strange. It's an asymmetrical. I don't find it strange. The whole like all survivors and all killers win if they all play well. Like I don't find that strange at all.
I do think it is strange because, as you said, we're moving into an MMR system. So would that be counting as a tie of sorts?
No, you just move up in. Well, wait.
Yeah, imagine this is like chess, where you have an LO rating. Maybe it's one that's hidden, so that you don't know exactly where you're sitting at, but you can have an idea.
With MMR.
Would you like, if you have a game like this, would you...
I guess it'd be a draw, wouldn't it? If you all won. It is weird. It's an asymmetrical, man. It's an asymmetrical.
Like, it is also weird for the individual survivors, because you could die very early to protect your team, and the game would think that you're doing relatively bad. But maybe that sacrifice you did let everyone else escape, you know? So, like, this would also... This would be hard for the individual survivors. For killers, okay, there's only one person. But there's also games where... I don't know if you've seen this, but of course you have. You basically carry the entire team. They do maybe fuck nothing, but because they do a totem here and there, they escape with way more points than you, and you are the only one dying, even though you probably single-handedly save the entire team. How does the game deal with that? I wonder.
You're on about a chase. Like say if someone did a really big chase and they just did gens.
Yeah, it could be a chase, but it could be something else. Maybe you just did a really good save, or maybe you just did the gens when they're like you did something. The game.
I guess you could do just like off the top of my head. I guess you could do something where, let's say, if you're on chase, you get kind of a percentage of what your team is doing. Right. And that could maybe balance it out. So even if you die in chase, you're going to get loads of chase points. Right. And you're going to get a percentage of what your team did. Like, that's just literally off the top of my head, but that seems like it could be an alright direction. It's like a whole day. But the thing is, we're talking about like redesigning everything. Right. I don't even know if the devs would like, listen to any of this. I mean, it'd be cool if they did, but... And
another thing I wanted to run by you is if the killer's objective is to kill, and some people, you know, swear by that and live by that, how do you reconcile that with the fact that you could have like 8 hooks and no kills in a game? How would you feel about that? Would you say, well, I did pretty good, even though the game's not really giving me kills, or...
just say that first part again. I was just looking at chat for a second because they said something regarding the percentage. There is a bit of that in the game, but it'd probably be a higher percentage to that person say that. Sorry, man. Say that first part again. I just got distracted.
Right. No. So the point I'm trying to get at here, right, is that let's say that I'm playing with my friends. All right, we're in a tournament. Let's say. The rule. Let's now get into the specific rules. We're in a tournament, and I want my team to do well. And I realize that my teammate is dead on hook. So I go and I take chase for him, and now you get me. Let's say you're playing killer, and you hook me, and then you hook me again, and then my other teammate realizes that I'm dead on hook, so they come, and now you hook them again, and then the other teammate comes. We have basically just juggled you into wasting your time, not getting anyone out of the game, and we are all going to escape eventually, even though you got 8 hooks.
People do that.
Right.
Do that. Yeah.
Wouldn't you say that this is a skill of the survivors as well? Of strategically sacrificing their hook states so that you do not finish someone off? Because this is something that really, when I played competitive and I practiced with my team and so on, one of the things that really blew me away was how willing they were to just go down. Like, I would have a guy dead on hook, right? And I'd be like, okay, this guy's dead. And if I kill him, then the rest of the team can maybe eventually fall. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, comes a teammate that I've never hooked. And they are 100% willing to go down for him. So in a game like that, you could get 1 kill, you could get 9 hooks, but I would argue that these survivors actually played spectacularly well, and that maybe you did really well in chases, because they allow you or not, or whatever. Maybe you did really well in chases and did a lot of chases, but you didn't have the initiative and you didn't have the insight to be like, wait a minute, they're literally toying with me. They're letting me get multiple hooks here so that I don't finish what I should finish and go on to maybe win the game big time, right?
You could obviously just ignore them though if you were going for kills.
That's not so easy. That's the craziest part, because if you think about it, if you have a game that's already pretty tight, you know, where the gens are taken, you need that down for that pop, and you need that down for that hook, and you need someone killed, or else the game is getting out of your grasp.
Yeah.
You are chasing a guy that runs very, very tight. He's playing really well. And then a guy comes by and he gets in front of him. Like, you understand that if you hit that guy with your demo, for example, you go the 3-second cooldown, the guy gets a speed boost, the other guy gets to another jungle gym where he has 2 other pallets and another window on another shag, blah, 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 blah.
Do you think...
And it's over. Like, those 30 seconds that it's going to take you now to finish that guy that you were going for in the first place,
yeah,
like, you've lost that game. Like, you could, like, if they play well enough, I would argue it's not so simple like, oh, just ignore them. No, if they play well enough, you're gonna be in trouble either way.
This links to gen speed though, doesn't it? This links to the survivors can literally throw themselves at you.
Yeah.
So they can just do their objective because your objective takes so long.
Right.
So this is a bigger thing. Like this, I think this links to gen speed personally. Because you're basically saying they are throwing the objective at you, and even when they throw the objective at you, you still don't have enough time.
Okay, like, no, what I'm trying to say, we could argue about that as well. Obviously, they can only do that if they're already doing well. But this is a bit like chess, right? The objective in chess is to capture the king. And sometimes you can do things that are silly. You can sacrifice pieces for no reason. But sometimes, if you sacrifice a piece that is worth a lot, but eventually gets you to capture the other... your opponent's king, it's totally worth it, right? So
yeah,
like if they are willing and they get away with sacrificing their own health states and giving themselves up so that they waste your time, maybe one of them is like, yeah, chase me, and they take you to a corner of the map. You pick them up, you hook them, it takes you 30 seconds, and now the gens are, you know, out of the all done. Like that's part of their skill as well. So when I think of like, oh, if we count hooks, and there's many hooks, that always means the killer's doing well. I think that the survivors can force those hook stages to make you waste time.
What happens if you were punished for being hooked?
Who, the survivors?
Yeah, I mean, as I say, just off the top of my head as I'm listening, like what happens if the killer gets rewarded for hooks and survivors get punished for hooks?
Wouldn't you say that RD is supposed to happen because you eventually die, or do you want them to be? I mean,
points wise.
Oh, wait, so points
yeah,
wise.
So you can't just abuse it. You can't just be like, well, I know my objective is done in X time, so I can just run at you.
But that's the thing. That would actually reward really bad gameplay. Like, for example, you know that one of the emblems for survivors is the Unbroken, right? And if you die very early, you get bronze. If you die later on, you get silver. If you go down once, you get golden. And if you never go down, you get iridescent, the highest, right? You remember that. So how do you feel about it? I think that's terrible. I think that if you never go down, that's really, really bad. That means that if 3 of your teammates die and you never went down, that means you never protected them. So, like, I think it's up to the killer to, yes, get multiple hooks to pressure the survivors and eventually get them killed. But also, I think it's part of a skill in itself and gives them flexibility to be like, okay, I know that I don't need to do 12 hooks. I know I need to do just a bare amount to get a player out of the game. And maybe the last person I kill, I've only hooked once. Or the last 2 people I kill, I've only hooked once before each. Instead of, you know, going for the 12 hooks on everybody. And I think that's part of your skill as a killer to identify the weak spot in the survivor's team and be like, okay, this is the weakest player, I'm going to get him out of the way. Or I'm going to go for chases to him more than maybe the other guy that's really, really good. So what happens if you balance the game around getting multiple hooks on everyone rather than killing people? And now it turns out that getting those hooks on the other survivors is not so easy at all. And you can't just go for like the weak link in the chain. You actually have to chase everyone.
Yeah, first they're just going back to the everyone's just like, you know, using their health states to protect other people, etc., etc. I do agree, you know, there's a certain team skill to it, you know, the understanding of who's and the devs have actually added the hook counter so you can do that easier. But is it very interesting?
What is interesting? Forgive me.
Like, is it very interesting gameplay? Something like that, like just using survivors as hook sticks.
That's what I'm telling you. Like sometimes, you know, I would have games where if I manage to get a survivor out of the way with 1 or 2 gens left, I can win that game and kill everyone and get a lot of points and maybe go on to the next tournament stage or whatever, right? But if I don't manage to get someone out of the game at some point, or survivors are inherently, like, at that level, it's very hard to control them, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna spread out, they're gonna take hits for each other, they're gonna, you know, get the exit gates done the minute they are powered, etc., etc. So, like, they are very, very willing to go to extreme lengths and to give me many, many hooks to make sure that no one dies. And so it's really funny, like, you know, you chase one guy and then you never see him again, and then his teammate comes in. Like, they take turns taking your attention, and I think that should be rewarded.
You think that should be rewarded?
I think it should. I think it shows that the survivors are protecting each other and they are managing their hook stages the same way you as a killer are. You don't just hook people like randomly. It's like, okay, one hook, okay, one hook. How many games have you been in where you're like, okay, dude, I have 7 hooks. And somehow none of these guys are dead. What is going on? I've been dominating them, and none of them are dead.
That usually is a Survivor Friends, yeah. If it's an efficient Survivor Friends, they'll usually do that.
Yeah, they're basically misdirecting you into spending time on people that you probably shouldn't spend time on. Because as we agree, survivors, if you let them, they can be very efficient and they can get things get things done very quickly. So here's where you are supposed to exert pressure on their weakest link, which is maybe the guy that you've already hooked twice, and then they'll have to come in and take a hit, and then gameplay occurs. And I think kills are okay for that. I think that if in a tournament, you hook a guy, then you hook another, okay, they do just a bit quicker than you like, now they do an exchange, and then you get a kill, and now you go for 2. If in a tournament you have to do something like that, obviously tournaments are extreme examples, and then you end up with 2 kills.
Extreme. This whole thing is a massively extreme example, to be fair. Like, this is like the top of the top. They are taking hits, etc., etc. So yeah, like,
but that's something that you see in every game. How many games do you win because there's a Claudette in a corner with with Urban Evasion that doesn't want to be chased, and thus you just end up killing one of her teammates faster because she's never taken you out for a spin and taking you on a long chase.
This style of play where you have teammates taking hits from the teammates and going down from the teammates, I only experience when it's that really strong Survivor Friends where the gens are flying. You've got everyone doing, as you say, like, this isn't a common occurrence. Right,
but you could argue the same. I also don't see many killers go for 12 hooks and play very well and really? Exert pressure. Like,
I actually go against a lot of killers going for loads of hooks. It's enjoyable. Like, if I didn't, it'd be a less enjoyable experience. What
I'm trying to say is that on one hand, you're saying, oh, I think killers should be, going for many hooks and should be playing in a way that, You're
basically saying if you're not too good at looping, the killer should tunnel that person and kill them quick, right?
I think that one of the skills of the survivors is protecting, working as a team and protecting each other. One of the things you don't do as a survivor is go down in the basement against a killer that can really hurt you. One of the things you don't do as a survivor is run the killer into your teammates.
Like, the thing is, I get that.
And one of the things you don't do as a survivor is, hide the entire match and let one of your teammates just get tunnel early to death because no one's protecting, no one's helping them out, no one's taking the heat off that person. I think that's part of the survivor's job. And I don't think we need to be like, okay, well, no, we need to change the gameplay. It needs to be hooks. It cannot be kills. If you get a 4 kill because you kill someone early and the other survivors did not do a good job protecting them, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying the game, oh, it's super easy to, especially back with Mois and stuff. I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying it can't be improved. But if you win because the survivors have bad teamplay, and they didn't waste your time enough as a team, and one of them just took the blunt of your chases and died early, that's on them as well.
I get that killing someone off really early in the game of a 4 versus 1 will make it easier for you as killer. I get that. But you're essentially just saying that killers should look for the weakest person and tunnel them and get them killed, so it's easier for you, which I don't think is very interesting or fun.
What would you think happen in a different system that would change this? What do you think would happen?
Hooks.
Wouldn't you say that you would be encouraging killers to just get as many hooks as possible and make sure that people are being tunneled as quickly as possible? Because there's nothing, you're saying that, okay, there's going to be a reason not to camp because there won't be progress on hooks if the killer's nearby. But what is the incentive not to immediately tunnel that person again and just get them hooks early?
You mean just stopping there waiting on a person who's not regressing on a gen?
What I'm trying...
Sorry, not regressing on the hook, sorry. Because are you talking about the example where I was saying if you were to incentivize killers going for hooks, you'd push them away from the hook somehow with the gen, and you wouldn't keep them at the hook because there's no reason for them to be there. Are you talking about that thing?
Well, it's hard because I still we still don't have a system that really encourages you to go for hooks.
For sure, but we should. I think that'll be healthy. My literal stance, once again, is that would be a healthier direction for the game. Pushing in that direction. Pushing in a direction where the killers want to go for multiple chasers. You don't need to tunnel anyone. You don't need to look for the weakest link. You don't need to get someone out of the game instantly because that's insanely unfun for that one person. And to encourage them going for multiple hooks and multiple chasers, and the whole gameplay isn't how quickly you can get someone out of the game. It isn't who can be slugged in this outpositioned here. It isn't who can be dead zoned here where there's no gameplay. It's how well you do in chase versus how well they do in chase. And dependent on how well you've done and they've done will dictate how the game goes. That's how it should be. And it isn't that way, obviously, but that would be the healthiest direction for the game. Will it get to that direction? I don't know. But that is the healthiest direction for the game. And it's the most interesting. If I'm a spectator, I don't know anything about this game. I come in, I see multiple killers going for multiple chases against multiple mines, doing multiple mine games and all this kind of stuff. That's interesting. If I go and see something where there's a guy who's staying near a hook, this person gets off the hook, he follows him, hits him down in a dead zone, puts him back on a hook, follows him again, puts him down at a dead zone, puts him back on the hook. 4 gens are done, walks, finds someone else, no-heads them, puts them on a hook, camps there. It's boring.
I think what I'm having difficulty here is, first of all, I don't disagree. More chases, more, more fun, that's okay.
Yeah.
I think my point is that that's not the only way for the game to work. And there's other ways, and they're also valid. If you're playing Trapper and you want to spend a minute setting up traps because you think that that's going to help you snowball later, that's not very, hook to hook, chase to chase. But it's still valid, and you can still do it, and you can still, if we're not.
You're talking about getting one position and just putting all traps there and just waiting for.
Not necessarily, but this is something that different people and different killers will do. Sometimes you're not playing a build that's made to prolong the game forever. You just have an endgame build, and you just want to use Bloodwarden to maybe get a couple kills at the end. Maybe you're playing Trapper, and you want to set some traps at the start, and you don't have time to go for 10 good chases. You're probably going to go... Well, yeah, but that's still okay. You're still going to get 4 kills if you play your cards right. And that's not any less valid, is what I'm getting at. If you want to go that playstyle, the survivors have again their own way to counter it. They're letting you set up, and they're doing many gens at the start. They'll knock out 2 or 3 gens just like that. But then if they don't play carefully for the rest of the game, they might find themselves in a very quick turn of events. And it's what makes the game kind of exciting, This is not it's not one of those one of those sports where one team is winning by so many points, that halfway through the match it's like, okay, I can stop watching, I know how it's gonna end. In this game, the survivors are never too far from making 1 or 2 mistakes that would immediately screw them over, right? For almost every killer. And that threat, I think, is a good thing. It keeps things spicy, it keeps things interesting, it gives you hope for a second chance if you had a bad start of the game. And if we're gonna balance the game around having multiple chases, I feel like Hunter's mains are gonna be happy, Nurse mains are gonna be happy, Blight mains are gonna be happy, but
set of characters probably wouldn't. As you said, Trapper and Hag, they're more the campy, sluggy, stay at one area kind of characters. Right? Okay. So they would be weaker in this kind of. Would they? You don't need to just stay in one area with Trapper. I'm not even saying I'm not even tying it to one area. I'm just tying it to I'm just trying to think, when I do go against a Trapper who's doing that, I do find that a very boring strategy. I get it. I do get it. Free gen, loads of traps around the free gens. Pretty much every loop has a trap now. But that's kind of boring again, I think. I don't think that's as interesting as going around the map planting traps and thinking of like, oh, let's push them this way.
I get that you find it boring and it's not your playstyle.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think that if someone wants to play like that and they want to have an in-game build with like Bitter Murmur, Noed, like, do you think they should just not be able to do that? Don't you think that the fact that they can still get 4 kills and
I think everyone should be able to play the way they want to play, definitely. But I think skill should be rewarded more than advantage. I said this today. I think skill should be rewarded more than advantage.
Can you like elaborate on that? Because I feel like
bring a Noed. Bring a Noed. Like, you know, that's an advantage, not a skill. You bring Noed, and now all of a sudden you're faster after, you know, all the gens done, and then you down someone. Bring in a key. You know, all of a sudden you were losing, and now you jump into a hatch. Staying at 3 gens. It's not very skillful, but it's a bit of an advantage, right? You're just staying at one spot. You're making dead zones everywhere.
I'm gonna give you.
I like the idea of skill over advantage a lot more. Like, even waiting for someone to die on a hook, that's giving you an advantage. It's not skillful, though, is it?
But that doesn't go in line with your point, though, because let's say that I'm an insanely good huntress, right? And midway through the match, I have a guy on the hook. I land 4 or 5 hatches in a row, like the craziest hatches you've ever seen, and I down the entire team. That's skill. I'm insane at hunters. Like, I have so many hours on her, and I just show you my skill in every one of those hatches, and I down everybody. But that's not the case.
No, that's fair enough. You're still going for hooks. They just completely just all went down for some reason that quick.
Right, like, exactly.
You didn't try to go for the slug. You saw all of them right next to you. If they do that, that's fair enough. Going for hooks basically is a mentality of, I want to get loads of hooks. It isn't, I'm going to ignore all of these people in front of me. Like, it's a mentality of, you're not trying to kill, you're trying to go for loads of hooks. The kills are the byproduct of going for loads of hooks. That's literally it. Like, it's, you can capitalize on some really stupid moment, of course. You're not just going to ignore it. But you're not aiming to do that. You're not aiming to negate this massive objective. You're not aiming to get them out of the game ASAP.
Well, maybe you're not, but maybe I am. Maybe I am placing 6 traps all around the map because I want all the survivors to step on them at the right time and, you know, give me the win. And I think that that is a risk and reward that I can take and the survivors can take, and they can play around it, and I can try to make it work, and they can try to make it not work. And that's valid. So if you...
I can definitely see, like, with the trapper thing, why you would think, you know, kills over hooks is interesting, because with a trapper, you might be able to get 4 people in hooks and then just pick 4 people in traps and then just pick them all up. But that doesn't work with all killers. With a lot of killers, you'd have to play very lame to go for kills over hooks. Like, if you didn't care about how many hooks you had, you wanted people out of the game, that's tunneling. It's face camping, it's slugging, it's all the boring part of the game.
But would you... Like, if I were to summarize my point real quick, and you try to find the biggest flaw there is in it, is that, to me, the survivors have tools and the responsibility to make sure they don't all die too quickly, that they don't all get slugged, that they don't have one of their teammates suddenly, you know, tunneled early. And because of that, I think kills is a fair way to assess, you know, more or less, how you did in a game. And there are different playstyles, and you don't necessarily need to get a lot of hooks to do well in a match. If we move towards a balance overall for the game that's just about hooks, you're killing a bunch of different playstyles, and it's all going to be about, you know, shortening chases artificially as much as you can, and getting the hooks in, and not necessarily having a larger plan or planning ahead or taking care of which survivors you're going to try to eliminate. And
you know when you play Survivor, it's just a chase. Like, especially when you've played this game a lot,
right?
The chase is the entertainment. That's what's fun. So I don't know. I can't agree with wanting a killer to tunnel me. Like, I just can't, because it's just not fun. It's really annoying. Like, say if you're on a hook, I get it. It makes it easier for the killer. Right. I 100% get it, and I 100% know why people do it in tournament. Which I said, the gens go too quick, or maybe map size, or it's something to do with the survivor's objective is way quicker than the killers. It gives killers less confidence that they can go for loads of chasers, so they do that. I completely get it. What I'm saying is it's not fun. I don't think it's very fun. I don't think it's a healthy way or a healthy direction for the game personally, right? I want to go for multiple chases, and I want killers to believe that they go for multiple chases. And this leads to something else as well. If you go for kills, and you're like, okay, this person's getting 2 kills, this is 3 kills, this is 4 kills, etc., etc., the devs aren't ever going to address tiles or map size or gen speed, because they're going to be like, well, these guys are killing. Oh, they're negating, like, half of the game, all the hooks, but they're killing. So we don't need to address it. So all you're going to see is when there's really good survivors, a really good killer, the killer has to play lame because he cannot compete in a fun way against them people. And it'll never be addressed because we're ignoring it.
All right, so I'm going to go over your point because I think there's a flaw to it. And you tell me if I'm strawmanning or if maybe I'm misinterpreting.
Sure.
The fun part of the game for survivors is to be chased by the killer.
Yeah.
However, the killer does not often commit to as many chases as he could because the generators they can be done very quickly.
Also, tiles, map size, things like that. Like,
Okay.
I love the TL, for example. I think the TL is the best designed tile. I love it. I just love the design of it. So if every kind of loop had that kind of like style, that idea, it'd be fucking fantastic. I would absolutely love it. But go on. And it would be fair for both killer and survivor. I think a TL is very fair for both.
No disagreements there.
Or bamboozle. Or bamboozle. Bamboozle makes it very unfair. It gets really in killer favor.
Okay, no disagreements there. But how do you allow the killer to go on more chases and make that happen more without making the other survivors, the 3 that are not being chased, not have to hold them one for longer? Because if you're telling me that, oh, I want to be chased a lot in a game, doing gens is not the fun part, it's the boring part. But we would have to make gen times longer to compensate for that. Or do you think that we could just get away with making, shrinking maps, making them smaller?
I feel if people went for hooks were the incentive, etc., etc., the devs will be able to have a different kind of look at the game, a different idea, and then they could start addressing, as I said, the gen time. It don't need to be just gen timers. Maybe it's another objective for the survivors to do. It's just like it'd just be a nicer direction. As I said, like I don't know how else to say it really, because I'm basically just saying the same thing now. Like,
no, that's totally fair. The one thing where I think you and I, because so far I don't necessarily disagree with much of what you're saying, really. I do believe that hooks shouldn't be the end game goal. I think the survivors should have their own responsibility in preventing that. But I don't disagree with more chases being better than just someone face camping and non-interactive gameplay. But the thing that I think we're not going to see eye to eye is how you feel about 4K streaks and kill challenges and what they do for the game. Because some time ago you made a tweet. And from what I've seen in your streams, like this is an opinion that you've expressed a few times. You don't think they're healthy for the game.
No.
Would you tell me why?
I said that tweet because I randomly just went on forums, and there's a lot of people who use these 4K streaks as a reason how the game is balanced, or in the killer's favor, when they're not understanding how these 4K streaks are done. A lot of the time they're done by killing people quick, etc., etc. Like they're not understanding that this is just getting, and it isn't even 4K, it's 3K sometimes, or whatever K. Like it depends what they like say is a win. Like escapes in a row, for example, like getting an escape in a row, we're bringing a key and someone DCing. Like it's quite what I would say. It misrepresents what a win is. I feel, I really do. And I feel people use it to, I don't know, they use it to kind of say that everything's fine, I guess to say this game's in a good state, or maybe even the killers have power, because obviously you can't do this in a row, blah, blah, blah. So I'm not a massive fan of them, personally.
Do you think that's more fault of the creators that do these challenges because they don't acknowledge that there's something wrong with the game and they're doing that? Like, for example, they don't say, "Oh, well, I got many escapes in a row because of these keys." Or do you think it's the fault of the person that sees that and misunderstands it and tries to align that with their own points?
Well, I don't know, like what the creator or whatever is thinking when they are doing the 4-man. Like, I don't know what their motive for it is. So I don't know with that. Like, it depends what the motive is. Are they doing it because they want to challenge, or are they doing it because they just want people to see that they've got this number near the name? Like, I don't know. I don't know what the motive would be. Regarding someone on a forum saying that, I mean, it's ignorance, isn't it? Like, they don't have as much information on the game, so they use someone who has, and that someone is winning a lot. So I guess it's really hard to say who's at fault there. I guess a bit of both. Like, the fault is saying I can 50 wins. The win part is the kind of the misleading thing. 50 wins, because it's like an in-house win. It's not an actual win, because the only thing that we can go off a win is the emblem system, which already is a mess, right? So it's all a mess.
And the developers themselves are retiring it, basically, out of matchmaking, right?
Yeah, the matchmaking. I don't know what the matchmaking thing is, because it's all going to be hidden. I genuinely don't know.
No, we'll talk about that, I suppose. But
yeah. I think it confuses people. I think it confuses people even more than people are confused already with the game. It just muddies everything, especially saying wins. Like, if it was like 53Ks or 54Ks or whatever, that makes sense. But say the wins part is the thing what I think misleads. And also, like, maybe escapes in a row, I feel that misleads in the sense that people think escape is a win, because it's almost like it's what's the word? It's suggested, right? It's almost like that must.
Yeah, it goes. It's the implication.
Implies. Yeah. The implication. That's the one. Yeah. So that's why I think it's unhealthy. It's not the worst ever thing in the world. There's other unhealthy things, but yeah, that's why I think it is. 100%.
Well, it might not be the worst thing in the world, but it's probably what got me to do this response and do this, because I know many people that have done this, and I disagree or agree more or less with the rules and what each person considers a win. You know, sometimes I'm like, okay, I wouldn't go just for 4 kills because I think it's boring. Or, you know, I can have my disagreements, but I think that what you're doing by saying that is just as harmful, if not more harmful, because it's kind of dismissive to the effort that these people make, to the efforts that these people put into their own challenges, whatever they might be, right? And it's like we're infighting between each other because the game is not perfect, and instead of like uniting efforts perhaps and figuring out, okay, why can this guy do this, or why can this girl, you know, pull this challenge off, instead of like talking about that, we're at each other's throats. And that, I think, is just that. It's just like, why are we doing this? I don't think being able to win many times in a row when you have like the amount of hours that some of these people do and that we do, because you've got like what, 6,000 hours in the game now, and I'm approaching that.
But also, just kind of to talk about this, you know, you must, right? And all the people who've played this game a lot know that the only way you get on win streaks is going against bad survivors. So even in that sense, it's just I just don't get the point. Like, I know that if I go against a really strong 4-man, I'm not going to get 3 of them or 4 of them or whatever. Like, you have to just get a streak of just not very good survivors. Like, you know that, right?
Okay, yeah, sure. And that's why
do you?
Yeah, but that's why I sometimes play in tournaments and I scrimmage against good survivors. And I'm very down to earth, understanding that, okay, if you're going to play in a tournament, you're going to be lucky if you tie. You're going to be very lucky if you win. And it wouldn't be crazy at all if you lost, like, most of your games.
This is why my position, once again, is that they're quite misleading. Because
it's not misleading about the game's balance at all, though. Like, it has nothing to do with the game balance.
The reason why we can do these, like, 50 streaks, so there's people who are like fucking 300. The reason people can do them is because the caliber of survivors they're going against isn't that high. As soon as you go against a high caliber, boom, streak gone. But in my eyes, it's kind of meaningless. It's just like a number, which is like, oh, you know, that's cool. That person got 300 wins in a row or whatever. But it's because you didn't go against people who was really, really good at the game. And I'm not saying
that's exactly what you think and exactly why you're just dismissive of it. But you're not considering all the other things. The fact that, for example, some of these streaks are done and they're very, very high numbers. They played 100 matches where they haven't made a single game-ending mistake. You know this as well as I do. Sometimes you can play very, very well against really bad survivors, like the worst survivors you've ever seen in your life. You make one mistake and you lose. And you know, some of these streaks are done with extra conditions. I play without add-ons for mine, for example, which makes it difficult. And I understand, like, half my games I'm like, okay, I didn't get that because I don't have an add-on. And there is a consistency to getting something done in a row, and there is a learning curve. And I have
consistency.
but
also there's
like,
a bit of luck.
You're saying, oh, they just win by killing quickly. How do you think you kill quickly if you're not good at the game consistently against like, even if they're not like tournament level survivors? If you're
you've made a tangent. As I said, the thing we're talking about is, and I'm sure you do know because you've played a lot, and everyone who's got a lot of hours understands that especially now as well, because there's more new players, the ranks are so watered down. Like, this is probably up there with the easiest it's been, I think, with survivors. And the reason you get on the streaks is because you don't go against that really, really high caliber. One really, really, like, Oracle or whatever, right? If they just went against when you were doing one of these streaks, they just take it. Even if you are really good at killer. Like, I'm not saying you're not good at killer or anything. I'm just saying the survivors have the control, and you know that. The survivors have the control because of the objective speed, which, you know, once again, tangent, but...
Okay, but, like, consider the following then. We're back to your original statement that 4K streaks, etc., they kind of misrepresent the state of the game. Am I correct in that?
They misrepresent that the killer is stronger than survivor, yes.
Well, I don't necessarily agree with that, because we can look at other games that are not asymmetrical, that are a lot more balanced. You can go on like CS:GO pros that play against average players, and they go on massive winning streaks, winning streaks. And we know that game is like as close to balance as it gets. The other day I was watching Hikaru Nakamura, which is like a top chess player, and he has this challenge, right, where he plays random people, not even like he's like incredibly good, right? But not even like random bad people, random really good players with this bogus opening, this really stupid strategy, and he's on like a 300 win and like 20 loss record. And why does he get that? Because he's incredibly good, and he has like many more hours than the average player he's playing against, and because he has a deep understanding, and because he's basically like the very, very top percentage. So when he plays against average or close to average players, he can go and do that. And that doesn't mean that chess is imbalanced, because, you know, it's the same pieces. It's generally a balanced game.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that these streaks show an imbalance. Go on.
I didn't really make too much sense. What I'm saying is in DBD is the reason, because it's so imbalanced, DBD. The reason why you can go for the big streaks is because the survivor's caliber, because it's so favorable for the survivor, as we can see when you do play at the higher level, the gens fly, etc., etc. What you were saying is you were just talking about people who are generally very good, like really, really good at a quite balanced game.
And they can achieve similar things to what you can do in this game if you also have in a lot of hours. Dependent
on the survivors you go against, yes.
Well, but like, here's the thing: there's no only survivor.
No.
Okay, yeah, go on.
Do you genuinely think that you could win 4-man any caliber team survivor?
If I was going against survivors with my hours, with like the same hours as me, like 4 survivors, not necessarily even a survivor fans that had the same hours, I'd be lucky to have 5 wins in a row. Like, that would be very, very hard.
That's exactly what I'm on about then. You agreeing with it. This is what I mean. Like, it's all about not getting them people. This is what I'm saying.
All right, so what should I do? Should I name my streaks 50 wins in a row, but a win is 3K and Hajj, but also I have 6,000 hours in the game or close, and my average opponent only had 752. I calculated. How do I make it easy?
I'm not going to say like how you title it. I do think it's between the same wins, but if I was doing like a 3K in a row or 4K in a row, I'd just call it that. I'd just say 3Ks in a row or 4Ks in a row.
Okay, no, that I think that is a fair point that I could totally, you know, agree to disagree or concede the point. That's fine. Like, that is just like, we're talking like semantics basically. We don't disagree with the fact that if you play against really good players, obviously it's going to be harder. And now the question, I think this said
impossible, honestly.
I wouldn't say impossible, because I see good survivors play against good killers, and I see good killers play against good survivors, and I don't see, oh my god, it's always one-sided. Survivors are always taking the win home. I don't see it that way. I don't see it that way genuinely. And many of the times where you think that is probably because, I don't know, you're maybe holding back. You're playing a weak killer against survivors bringing the absolute strongest things.
This is with every killer. This is with every killer. Like, you can possibly do it with Nurse, Spirit, things like that. We're talking about every killer. Like,
I mean, that's
there's so much
fair, but
downtime with some of the killers. Like, you have so much downtime with some of the killers that, like, they could do 2 gens before you even start your first chase.
And I think this segues nicely then into the MMR system. Would you be happy then if an MMR system comes around and now you're paired against people that have around your hours, which is going to be hard because there's going to be like 5 of them, right? But
this is what I'm on about.
Okay.
Like, so this is what I'm scared about, and this is what kind of got me into
why are you scared about it? Shouldn't that be great?
Well, let me say, this is what got me into kind of thinking this way and talking about these things and these tweets and stuff, because I'm thinking, if I'm going against people with the same knowledge, the same understanding of the game, it's literally just going to be face camping, slugging, one hooking, only going for dead zones, not going for any chasers. Like, it'll be a very uninteresting game for me. That's what I'm scared about, because I don't think skill is actually the skill of the chase. I think skill is gen efficiency and one hooking, which I don't see as skill. I see it as advantage, as I said.
I don't know if I necessarily I agree
Also,
that at the highest level it all just dumps down.
It kind of does. Have you not seen like tournament? No, just
I don't know. True. Like, if I'm completely honest and you allow me to be blunt, I have a feeling that you've just seen some tournaments that just made you think of tournaments like that.
Possibly.
And you're set on that idea.
There were one I saw a month ago or something like this.
Okay.
And their strategy as the survivors were to put the pallet down instantly and 3 other people just do gens. That was the strategy. Just put the pallet down instantly. Don't even like attempt to go for like another loop around it. Just put it down instantly.
You just play it mega safe. Delay the first hook.
And eventually, you know, he'll go down, but then they've lost 3 gens.
Yeah.
So it's already like, that's like, what is that? 6% of the objective pretty much done already.
Yeah, I understand the point, but I feel like if we're gonna discuss it like this, like, we're already acknowledging that it's not so much about, like, in that situation, it doesn't matter where it's hooks, kills. I think it's most about, okay, this map is busted.
Well, it does. It does.
Why?
Because it matters. Because the devs aren't addressing this because they're looking at kills. This is the point I'm talking about. If everyone just went for hooks, then the data the devs got would be clearer to what the game is. I think the devs' data, what they get, isn't very clear to what the game is.
And then what would happen? What would happen with the hundreds and hundreds of games that happen all the time where survivors just give up on hook? Would that count as a 3 hook? What would happen in the games where survivors disconnect? What would happen in the games where survivors let someone reach stage 2 by not even going and bothering? What would happen if you kill yourself on hook?
What do you mean by that? What would happen?
What I'm saying is your argument here is that if we looked at statistics about hooks, that would probably paint a clearer picture about how good a game is and what we should balance towards.
And then killing himself on the hook would show how many hooks they got. It'd be the same thing. Like, say if they didn't kill themselves on hook and they played really well and you got 4 hooks, would be the same as you 4 hooking them, you get 4 hooks. Now, one of them shows 0 kills and one of them shows 4 kills. The 4 kills were just as bad as the 0 kills one. But the devs now can see that it was only that amount of hooks. I don't think this will actually happen anyway. I just think it would be a healthier way of looking at the game. The
devs have already told us, I think on stream, that their MMR system is not going to be just based on kills. They said that they tested a system like that. That was only on kills.
And it didn't work. That's what I mean.
And it just did not work.
That's exactly what I mean. It's not good data to use.
So that I don't think surprises anyone.
No.
Because you can legit have a very good game and have 1 kill after hooking many people and having many chases. You can also have like a horrible game and just hook 1 guy and camp him. I understand that. But there's also the fact that you cannot escape, and it's that survivors control how many hooks you get. They just control it. If they do not allow themselves to be hooked multiple times by not allowing you to engage different survivors, like I said before, you're not going to get those hooks. So it's also based on what they give you. It's something you cannot control as a killer.
There will be extremes in both sides, but I think the extremes to the hook side won't be as bad as the extremes to the kill side. I think the kill side will be way more misleading than the hook side. Like, there will be some kind of abuses they'll be able to do, but then you can work on them anyway. It still my mind still hasn't changed that I think hooks are like going for hooks. The killer wanting to go for as many hooks as possible is healthy for the game. Like, my mind still hasn't really changed on that. And that's fine, you know, like we can agree to disagree on that. I have no problem agreeing to disagree on stuff. But
I don't think my disagreement with you is that a killer going for multiple chases is bad. I think my disagreement with you is that it's not the only way a killer can win. I think that, you know, if you manage to down all 4 survivors because they misplayed it, that's as valid as a 12-hook game. And my disagreement also is that if you have that kind of playstyle, and you want to do 50 wins in a row like I do, or, you know, whatever other 4K challenge that some other people do, even if I don't personally like it or love it or agree with all the rules, that's also a valid way to deal with the game. And that counting hooks is just not necessarily like the solution to this.
It's not really counting hooks. It's incentivizing the killer to want more hooks. It doesn't matter if you get like 10 hooks, 9 hooks, 8 hooks. It matters about incentivizing the killer to want hooks over kills. That's always my position. That's literally it.
And how do we, like, honestly, if we agree to that, and I'm again, we're agreeing on that, how exactly do we do it map wise? What are our best ideas if we put them together as a community to push this? Is it just about trying to change the devs' minds about how they collect data so that they see it themselves? Is it about pushing a certain idea?
I think it'd be about incentivizing healthy gameplay, incentivizing the killer not to slug camp tunnel, incentivizing the, you know, survivors to go for hooks. You know, but I mean, they've already got the incentive to go for hooks, so I guess they've already got that. It's just trying to make it so you don't have these killers who, because you like if MMR does work, right?
Okay.
And I genuinely go against people who understand the game as I do, this game will be very boring. I don't think MMR will completely work. I don't think I will go against, like, you know, the tournament, like bloody 5 gens in 4 minutes and one hook into nowhere, and
like we have to remember that those are still a very minuscule part of the average player base, right?
Yeah, but if MMR is on and with our hours, like we'll be high MMR with our hours, man, compared to like people who've started like 100 hours ago and stuff.
Right.
So we'll be bunched in with a lot of that, 100%. Like, I don't think it'll be very fun. Is what I'm saying. I don't think they'll get it right though. I don't think they will actually get an MMR where it judges, you know, how good your skill is compared to how good someone else is. But you never know. You never know. Regarding the hook incentive and all that kind of stuff, it would be awesome if we as a community could kind of grab that concept and try and work out how to incentivize killers to go for chasers, you know, work on the tiles, work on the map size, all that kind of stuff, because I think it would push the game in a really healthy way. And then once again, when you're looking at tournaments, then you'd see multiple killers being viable, right? And then you'd have multiple chasers. You'd have the game would turn less about how quickly can this person die or how quickly can these gens be done, how much of an advantage can I take over this dead zone, into mind gaming loops, into conditioning at loops, into the kind of the chase, what you kind of expect, I feel, when you go into Dead by Daylight, probably.
I still see a problem is that we're kind of wishing for two things at once that I think are hard to reconcile. On the one hand, we want the killer to have more time to just spend chasing survivors and less, you know, thinking about micromanaging gens and getting someone out of the game, etc. We want more time.
You're microing gens in the sense that you're pushing people off them, and you could still do hit and run things like that, but you're still going to have to commit to a chase eventually, aren't you?
Yep, sure. But the problem is we want the kill to have more time to engage in different chases and not have to settle for, you know, one chase, one camp, end of the game, that's it. You know, very non-engaging, non-interactive gameplay. But then on the same breath where you are complaining that already the game is impossible. Like if the survivors play it right, then the killer doesn't have time to get everywhere. How do we do this? How do you?
But as a community, I bet we could. Like if the devs allowed us to have a lot of input and stuff, I think we could make this game into something amazing. I really do. I think it's got the foundation of a really entertaining to watch and play game. It already is, even with people like face camping and slugging, all this kind of stuff. I think it has potential to be really fun. Like,
do you think it should be more of a post-game reward that incentivizes this, or more like gameplay-wise changes?
One thing before I forget. I wonder why the devs stopped the early game collapse. Maybe that could have actually helped. You know, I don't know what it was, but the whole idea were survivors won't be able to do gens for X amount of time at the start of the game. I guess maybe they just left corrupt intervention. I don't know. But yeah, like, yeah. Anyway, go on. What were you saying?
It's just the early game collapse. Because I have a feeling that if it's a post game reward, like, people are still gonna do whatever the hell they want. You know full well that there's people out there that will just face camp you for 5 gens because they can, and they know they're gonna get an entity displeased, but they're gonna do it anyway.
Well, you can't stop that. There's no chance you can stop. That's just people's minds. You won't be able to stop that. There'll always be people like that in games. That's something how would you stop it? I have no ideas for that, because that's just people's minds. Like, they don't care that the game's saying don't do this. They just want to make someone's experience unpleasant.
I think the conclusion is that I don't see a emblem system that should work. Like, it would be great if they would work it, but I don't see that changing the way people play. I think, and it would need to be gameplay related, and maybe not necessarily a perk like border time or decisive. I think maybe we should be looking at pushing natural, like common mechanics like end game collabs or the suggested early game start or whatever, rather than make it perks, and that maybe would help the game more. Is that
100%?
Is that where 100%. Your efforts would go?
Yeah, I think a lot of perks are plaster fixes, aren't they? I'm not the only ones who said this. There's a lot of people who say that, where the devs add perks as plaster fixes to the gameplay, like corrupt intervention. You know, that. You know, I understand their frustration. Like, early game collapse.
Yeah, because they said in a dev stream once, and I honestly feel for them. They're right. It's like, if they make perks that are good, then people complain that they're making crutch perks, and if they make perks for side objectives that are not necessarily like perks that condition the entire game, then they're making useless perks. So I understand the struggle.
You know what I found kind of funny regarding Ruin and Dying.
Yeah.
So we always have the discussion: how do we get the killer incentivized away from the hook? How do we give more objectives to the survivors instead of gens? And I just found it funny how Ruin and Dying kind of solved both the issues, where the killer needs to walk away from the hook to actually get benefit from Ruin, but it also gives the side objective of them needing to get the totem to get rid of it.
I don't know if I agree on you on that. Don't you think the current Ruin and Dying does that in a more elegant and fair way?
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying, like, Ruin and Dying is literally what people were asking for. And what I found really funny is, in my chat, after Undying got nerfed, someone said, so-and-so has thought of an idea to give survivors another objective, and I just thought, that's literally what Ruin and Dying were, and they said no to it. So I don't know if they're going to allow.
But I think that was a terrible objective, though. That was terrible. I think it was terrible, because it's like, when you're playing a survivor, even like, I'm not even going to assume that you're playing solo, which you could. But let's assume that you're even playing with a survivor friend, so you know more or less what's going on.
You just bring a map.
Let's say that you don't need it. Let's say you just find the totem. So I'm going to make this as simple as possible. You still will need to go to a totem, will need to do that totem, and then probably before you do that, find the other totem, and then cleanse one, and then cleanse the other. And if you were 50-50 unlucky, then you would have another one out there. And that's like best case scenario. Yeah. And during this whole time, the killer could see you cleansing it. So if it's a fast killer, or a killer that can push you off, like say Doctor with the blast or whatever, so they could stop you at any point during that process. I think that was ridiculous.
It had a delay, like it had a cooldown though. Like if you were on it and then they pushed you off, someone else went on it, they wouldn't see you. They wouldn't see someone else on it. Well, I thought Ruin and Dying was actually good. Personally.
I think Ruin and Dying in the way it was disgusting. I think all Ruin and Dying was the only time where I saw in scrimmages and tournaments, killers consistently win. Like, consistently. Not even like 50-50, not even like the survivors usually getting a few escapes.
They got rewarded for doing well in the chase?
It's not that they got rewarded for doing well in the chase. It's that the survivors got punished for doing totems. And they didn't get rewarded at all. Like, imagine... here's the thing. Imagine you're a killer and you hook a survivor, alright? But that one survivor had this one perk that makes it so the first hook doesn't count. How would you feel? It's like, okay, well, I hooked him 3 times, but he's still alive because he had that one perk. And I couldn't know he had that one perk because, well, you know.
I would say that's a massive extreme, though.
It's very similar, though. Like, in competitive, I'm not joking when I tell you that the strategy was just to ignore totems. And if there was Devour Hope, well, use Deliverance. And if there was Ruin, well, power through it. They, like, you're saying, oh, it incentivizes survivors to go do the totems. Doing the totems is impossible. Like, if you need to do 2 totems with best luck and the killer can see you at any given time doing those totems, that's going to be hard. But it's possible that it might be 3 totems. And if you're a bit unlucky, it could be 4, it could be all 5. And you would still have Ruin up.
But we say that gen speeds are so quick, and now you're saying an objective which takes them away from that is bad. This is what I'm not getting.
No, it's that they do not have. Okay, let me ask you a question. If let's say that you're playing in a survivor team, all right, and you're playing a finals tournament, many things at stake, all right, and you're calling the shots for everybody. It's the usual stuff. You're splitting up on chase. You're being run by the killer or something, and someone asks you, okay, Tru, what do we do? Do we do totems or do we do gens? What do you tell them?
Are we allowed to bring maps or anything? Or like,
yeah, let's say that you can find the totems. You know, you call detectives or whatever. You can find them. What do you think? What do you think we do?
What killer is it?
Let's say you're playing against twins, for example, which in competitive has been or a good blight or a good huntress, something like that. A nurse, for example, if you want to make it spicy.
I don't know if there's. I actually don't know if there's one solution. Like, I think some people would, like you're saying, everyone does.
Well, no, I just have a bit of insight because I saw this happen in like practice for tournaments and stuff, and I think consistently the best idea was just to ignore it. It's too much risk. If you do a totem, you could have Hunt the Ground, you could have Retribution, giving the killer a lot of information. It was never going to be getting rid of Ruin first because you would.
I guess you could prioritize gens, and then on your route into gens, if you see a totem, you could go for it.
And then, like, that just never worked because the killer would, you know, hook a survivor and then be like, okay, well, that guy's doing a totem because I see him because I've got, like, free bar.
What's kind of, like, what are you getting with this? Are you saying that it was bad because...
it was a bad idea to bother doing totems because the totems were so unpredictable. And if you were unlucky, you could do 3 totems and still not have Ruin out of the way. And at that point, you've done an extra generator for absolutely no reason with absolutely 0 guarantees that you're going to get rid of that perk.
Are you saying it was OP? Like, I'm trying to understand what you're saying. Like,
I'm saying that it was very strong. I'm going to say that it was OP as well.
So for 2 perks?
Yes, I would say so. For two perks, Tru, you have a built-in Amal Ears for anybody walking through any of the 5 totems. You have a guaranteed Ruin that will last you at least 2 totems. Each totem takes 14 seconds to complete, and anytime they're on a totem, you will see their aura, and you can interrupt it. So that means that if you're going against a survivor team, and this in competitive, and good survivors do it too, at the start of the games, they often hide to outweight corrupt. So if you're going against a team, and one of them just happens to spawn by a totem, or walk by a totem, they'll be revealed. So it completely kills stealth. It gives you an advantage in chase, so it works a bit like Amal Ears. It makes it basically impossible for them to start cleansing totems unless they've already found the 2 that are lit. There's also the possibility that there could be 3 totems, so you could have a Retribution, Devour Hope, Undying, not Devour Hope, Ruin, on a nurse, on a small map. So any totem you do is going to trigger retribution, and you're going to have at least 2 retributions.
Is this with your mentality of the killer going for hooks or trying to kill people quickly?
This is a mentality of the killer doing whatever they want to absolutely stomp you. Like,
so trying to kill people quickly and slugging and all that kind of stuff.
No, it doesn't matter, dude. If you're going for quick kills, then this will help you, and if you're going for many hooks, this will help you as well. Like, yeah, in fact, you have a lot of time to go for many hooks if you want to, but like, there's nothing stopping you from not doing that.
Well, I feel that once again this incentivizes the hook play. Like, I'm thinking about possibly doing a tournament, whatever. Right. And if that does happen, I want to have Ruin, right? And this would actually give me good data instead of just like what ifs.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
I want to have Ruin, where every killer needs to just have one of the perks as Ruin, and then they pick the other 3, obviously not hexes, and the survivors can't cleanse it. And I want to see if it is really just dominant, the killer just completely dominates, there's no chance against it. Because I'd like to see it. I'd like to see kind of how it is, and then it'll all be based on hooks. Like, hooks is the point system, kills, gives you some points, but nowhere near as much as hooks, etc., etc. It'll give me more of an idea, because at the moment it's kind of just, I think, quite speculative. I don't know. I don't think Ruin is as powerful as you're saying.
Oh no, it's not anymore. Like,
no,
I don't feel about it that way now, for sure.
No, if you can't cleanse it, like if you can't cleanse Ruin, you have it up all game. I don't think it's as powerful as you're saying. I do think it was very powerful, like borderline OP, but like my biggest issue with it is not necessarily that it's like super strong, because survivors also have strong things, right? Like, we know that they have strong items, they have strong perks. The problem is that the counterplay to it is to just ignore it and not do anything about it. It's like a survivor comes out of a hook, goes into a locker with decisive. Like, your best counterplay is like, okay, well, I can't do anything. Depends. Like, sometimes you take it if it's early.
Right, but like, you understand, right? Like, let's say, like, it's like, okay, like, the best counterplay of this perk is, you know, getting absolutely destroyed by it and powering through it. There's nothing I can do around it. And it's a hex perk. You're supposed to be able to play around it.
But as I said, you're saying that Rune Undying was really OP and all that kind of stuff. But I'm saying in this tournament, it'll actually be even stronger than Rune Undying, because it'll just be ruining what you can't cleanse. So I want to see like how strong it actually is. That, like, it could be insane, but I generally don't think it will be. I've done many games where Ruin's been up all game, and if that killer is not doing good chases, them gens are gonna be done. Like, Ruin only gets strong when the killer's good in chase, which should be the case. The killer should be rewarded for being good in chase.
I do have a feeling that you really think that, like, the killer pushing people off gens with Ruin is like what makes you able to get many chases in a game. And I'm not sure I agree with that. I think what Ruin enables you to do, more so than go on many chases.
Wait. It does a few things.
Okay.
People that you push off chase, right? It'll hit that, but it'll also hit people who are pushing to get the save, and then it'll also hit people who are on gens who you're pushing after the person's on the hook. So it's everywhere. If you have good momentum with killer, you are getting regression everywhere. It's not just one place. But that's if you do good. If you do bad as killer, you get very little, and if you face camp as killer, you get nothing. That's why I like it.
Okay, I have an idea. I really would like to see this happen. Like, really would like it, because I think it would be very interesting. And if you want to, we can make our guesses as to what's the gameplay that's going to be more successful. Because I have a feeling that if you as a killer have a Ruin that can never be cleansed, you're going to take advantage of that. Like, if I have a survivor that's going to hit stage 2, and I have a gen nearby, and I know that I can just, you know, push survivors a little bit, camp a little bit, and get a bunch of regression, and maybe slog a little bit.
I found that boring. Like, the whole reason I use Ruin is because I like to explore the map. I like to go around the whole map and try different loops and all that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, true, but you can't say, well, you know, my playstyle is this, so for me it's not OP. So it should stay in the game like this, but...
You were saying what I do. I was saying what I do.
No, you as in your tournament. Like,
you're predicting what will happen in the tournament.
Exactly. I'm not talking about you as an individual. No. That's completely aside. What I'm trying to say is, like, we can't be like, okay, well, I like to go for many hooks, so Ruin and Dying
remember, hooks will be more points than kills in the tournament.
And you also reward people for, if I read that too correctly, for unhooking.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say that will also have a blind spot in your rules? Wouldn't that also benefit me if I just, like, make sure that no one gets that rescue? Because Okay, go ahead.
Because you're doing a 5v5. So if you go against a killer who tries to just like one hook everyone, he's gonna have really low points. And then what's the other killer going to do? Is he just gonna one hook everyone and just draw? What's the point? Nothing's gonna change. And then if you do allow people to get off the hook, then they get unhook points, etc. Like I'm still working out the variables of it because it's quite difficult to incentivize people to play in a fun way. I'm trying to think of a way to incentivize them to play in a fun way so it's entertaining to watch.
Like I actually would love to acknowledge if I'm wrong, but I have a feeling that people are going to disregard, are going to play around the rules as scummy and as tight as they can.
They'll try to. That's why I'm trying to like make it watertight.
And if it's like, okay, well, if I let this person be unhooked, they can get 2 rescue points from getting hurt twice. But if I just camp them, I make sure they die, and they don't get 2 rescues out of that person. And when she dies, then I can many hook the other 3 survivors. And then I'll get my points. I think it will turn out to play exactly the same as other tournaments.
Maybe. Hopefully not.
But yeah, maybe that's the fate of this game until we see changes in the rules.
Possibly.
What are the things that we can?
I think we have been conditioned quite heavily as well. Like seeing that entity displeased, right? When you've played really good as killer and really nice, that conditions people as well. That gets into your head. That gets into your subconscious. That's not good.
It feels. I understand what you mean, and I would agree. So what are the, let's say, 3 points that we unanimously agree on? What would you say from our talk? What are some points we agree on? That we agree on 100%.
Well, it sounds like you're pretty much agreeing with what I'm saying, but you're still saying kills over hooks to an extent, right?
I think that kills as a method encompasses more gameplay choices and is an adequate way to how do I put it? To measure your success. And it's fine as it is. Obviously, if it's kills and then it counts something else, that's wonderful. And I would not dismiss someone's playstyle because they go for kills. I think that's fair. I think that's part of the rules and you can play around them. While still agreeing that, yeah, if you can manage to go for many hooks, that's wonderful. And other things that we seem to agree on is
I agree that everyone can play how they want, but I would like it to be incentivized that people play in a more fun way for everyone. That's kind of my position. So like, I get that people want to face camp and people want to do all that, and I get that might be fun for them, etc. But I would like the gameplay to incentivize a more fun thing where both teams are having fun, so the killer and survivor.
And I think maybe the big thing we disagree on that I don't really agree on is that at higher levels, at higher levels, it's just completely survivor dominated, and I don't know if I necessarily agree with that.
Really? If we look at the variables of everything,
like we can look at the variables of the 100 people that play competitive in this. We should probably look at the variables. Okay, of the people that play you don't want to look at the people that are just playing out.
I'm just talking about the time of everything, like 80 seconds per gen, 4 people. When you hit someone, you lose about 27 seconds or something on them moving forward.
I could go the other way and I could be like, okay, it's 20 seconds to heal with Thanatophobia, and if I have Spirit with this add-ons, I can get 2 hits in 20 seconds. And if I down this person and I have this person on the hook, that's gonna take 2 survivors to come here, and now I'm too strong as a killer.
Actually, that moves on to another. You've just reminded me that moves on to another thing. Another reason gens might be going quite quick is people can do them when they're injured. Like, what happens if you did a gen when you're injured? Like, kind of like Fana, but like just normally in the game.
Right.
Yeah,
like people like dismissing like health states basically just to push gens because they know they're safe. They know they're not gonna get immediately chased. So
especially with DS, yeah. I mean, they're sorting out the DS thing, which is good, but like that could be why gens go quite quick. Like as you said, it does take 20 seconds, etc., to heal, but they're not healing. So it don't matter.
There's actually tournaments where the rules specify that until 2 gens are done, I played in one like that, survivors could not repair while they were injured. And you want to know what happened?
The gens were really quick.
No, obviously it slows down the gens at the start. Like near the end, it's normal pace. But at the start, the gens are pretty slow because, you know, if you're playing a killer that can damage a few survivors, they need to do their self-carrying or they need to do their medkitting.
It's a bit of an incentive. As I said, like that might not be a bad idea. There were another. I've had lots of ideas with this game because I see potential in it, man, and I want it to do really well. I think it could be way bigger than it is. But there is, you know, slowly growing, which is awesome. Yeah. There were another idea where when you hook a survivor for the first time, they get an action debuff. So that once again incentivizes going for more than just tunneling one person. Just another little idea I've had. You know, when you hook someone, like you would, wouldn't you? If you were hooked on this massive hook, you probably wouldn't be able to just be at full capacity, would you? So
yeah, okay.
So if you hook someone, there's like some kind of action debuff. That's just like another idea I've had.
All right, like those ideas I think are good, and as you said, they could dish out a PTB with these things and test them out, and if they don't work, they don't work, and that's fine. How about some other core mechanics of the game, like survivors being slower when they're together on gens? Do you think there's anything right now in the game, like something that you could just turn off or maybe move up or down that would just help a lot? Like healing being quicker, healing being slower. Like what would you encourage or what would you change?
Oof. Not sure, to be honest. What's in your mind? I'd see if I can come with something.
I don't like the way the endgame handles with the whole 99ing of exegates. I feel like endgames could be exciting, but like when all, how many games do you know all gens pop and you still have fun for a long time? Like it's either they're all gone or they never get there in the first place. So I like the endgames to be a bit more fun. I also like one thing that I really don't like is how we're conditioned by perks as to what we can do and what we cannot. Like if you don't have a BT and if you don't have a DS, it's like, okay, well, no point in going for the rescue. There's very few baseline things to protect survivors and to encourage them to be altruistic, I feel. And
well, I'm all about the kindred, man. But yeah, if a killer is near a hook, I'm not going for a save. But that's why kindred's nice. You can see if the killer's going. But regarding the endgame collapse, and this is why I said for you to say something, because then I can bounce ideas. The regression on the exit gate, I don't know why that isn't a thing already. Honestly, I don't know why they can 99. It's really weird.
How do you feel about normal kicking regression? Also,
well, I said that before. I think it should be faster. I think that is 100% something they should test in a PTB. Put normal regression to, as I said, 200% of. Well, I guess what can I say? Half of the survivors. 200% of normal regression. But then it makes sense if it's obviously regression. So.
Right. So a full gen would take like 160 to go down.
It'd be like ruin. It'd be like ruin, but this time you have to kick it. So it makes sense. You know, it just links with it.
Okay. So like putting all this together, all these ideas, what do you think is keeping the devs from doing this? Because we can tomorrow, you know, write a little petition or bother the devs with a bunch of emails or start threads on forums.
You'd have to talk, honestly, we'd have to talk to the devs because I don't know where their minds are with what they're balancing for. Are they balancing for newcomers? Are they balancing for, you know, intermediate? Are they balancing for the hardcore? Like I don't know where their heads are.
If you want my take on it, I think that they do look at statistics and they realize that whatever it is that's going on results in a somewhat even 50-50 kind of
one thing I can say, like regarding statistics and especially the kills, once again, they've looked at Freddy and Freddy's got the highest kill rate, right? So they're thinking of nerfing or whatever, right? That's a possibility. But on the same thing, Nurse is there with the lowest kills,
right? So
are they just pick and choosing what statistics? Because if they're not, then Nurse needs a buff, right?
Okay, if I'm allowed to comment on that, I think the reason why they want to nerf him, I imagine, is because he has a high kill rate, and because there is other elements to his gameplay that are probably not very fun or engaging, like the no BT because you're oblivious, the slowdown by add-ons, even though that's not as bad as it used to be, how simple it is, you know, to use perks on him. I mean, I'm guessing that's why.
He's very simple. But he ain't even the best anti-looper. I think Doctor's a better anti-looper than Freddy.
Yeah, and Doctor actually does pretty well according to the stats.
Well, he stops the pallets from dropping. Freddy can't even stop them.
But
and he can trap them inside of pallets too.
I generally don't know what we can do to get through.
What's that?
I don't know what we can do to get through. Do we need to prove that these, like, they might look at this initiative and be like, okay, here's a bunch of changes, and they're just gonna make the average kill rate for killer plummet, or they're gonna make it spike, and we don't want to deal with that. The game's doing pretty well as it is. They may be looking at the average player, and what should they care about what someone with 5,000, you know, a very minor percentage of the community. How do we convince them?
Well, first, as I said, we need to know what their angle is. Like, do they want to balance for when people are playing well, or do they want to balance for people who don't even look behind them? You know, for example, like, do they and don't know any tiles? Like, I don't know what their angle is. As I said, like, I need to know their angle before I can know how to approach it. I think, because I generally don't know what their angle is. Like, I don't know what they're aiming for.
Well,
but I do think the game becomes in a more terrible state the better you get, which shouldn't be the case. That's not how games should go.
I generally don't even know if we're gonna get to a point where you can balance simultaneously for like extreme cases, but also keep it fun and friendly and accessible for everybody. I don't know how possible that is, and whether the devs want to make a compromise or not.
I think what you do is, as you said, you do PTBs and you just you want to do like baby steps. You want to do small changes, and you want to see what the ripple effect of the small changes are. I say this when they nerf killers as well. When they nerf a killer or buff a killer, sometimes they go like all out and they do loads of things instead of baby steps.
Yeah.
When one thing could have just rippled. Like, let's say Freddy, for example, taking away just his teleport to gens could have a massive ripple effect on how strong he is. But what they might do is they might be like, right, we'll take away that. We'll make him have massive cooldown on snares. And then, yeah, of course he's going to be nerfed, but maybe he didn't need that much. And it's the same thing with these little changes. Like, let's say we did a PTB for the regression of gen, right? We regress to gens half as quick as a survivor. We do that on a PTB, see how it is. Maybe it goes to live. You know, they could change it anyway. And then they see the ripple. How much of a ripple effect does that do? Does that do anything to lower level? Does that do anything to intermediate? Does something happen in the high? That's how I would probably do it. Because I don't think there's like, right, we do this, and then at the highest level, it's all fine now. I don't think it works that way. I think what you have to do is you need to put things in place. You need to observe them, and then you need to see how they interact with different levels of play.
I think that is kind of at odds with what they like to do, because as you say, they go for drastic changes.
Too drastic.
Like, you remember some time ago where they just gave the plague like an extra fountain at the start, and that was like amazing. Yeah. And they just like they just made like little changes like this, and those are the best changes.
Oh, the Huntress Lullaby. That was actually decent change.
Non-directional.
It's omnidirectional.
Yeah,
now.
They made Pop, which was
that was so big.
Yeah, and they made Pop like virtually a perk that almost no one run, which was 30 seconds. They made it 60 seconds, and you know, the day after, you know, a week after that, everyone's running Pop.
Yeah, it went from 30 to 60. Now it's 45.
And that wasn't a massive.
I disagree with that Pop nerf, by the way. I don't know what the hell.
I think it was unfortunate, but. Like, it's little changes like that.
Now it's just a free gen thing. Like, you can't use it other than being close to a gen.
No. Like, we don't need to delve into it because I think we agree on it. But I would agree that small changes like that would be better, and see how well they sit, and then maybe take it back if it doesn't work out. Like with the blood loss experiment. What do you think of that one, for example?
What's that? You went robotic.
With the blood loss going offline for a weekend. How do you feel about that? About experiments like that, in general too.
Well, yeah. What were they gathering from that? Actually, bloodlust going would be very problematic. There'd be so many infinites created.
Honestly, playing Survivor that weekend felt good, because you knew that if a killer wasn't using his brain cells to chase you, he would just keep chasing you forever.
But and you can actually lose bloodlust when you're playing Survivor. You can just stand still and it loses a chase. Like, you can play around it. And a lot of killers won't.
I don't know if that works so easily, dude. You cannot loop while you stand. Still.
What I would say is, if they are touching bloodlust, level 1. Keep level 1. Level 2, 3, whatever. But level 1, because they will be very I can't, for some reason, like, I can't think of the examples right now, but there is examples where there's loops which are just completely busted without any bloodlust.
Right, no, I understand that. I understand that. But I think we're, like, you understand, if they did this experiment without the bloodlust, like, 2 years ago, you remember? Like, that would have been, like, completely game-ending. Like, it would have been actual infinites, probably. Whereas now, the game, I think, played pretty well, which means that the maps are not too far from... They're not too far from being fixed, and the gameplay is not too far from not needing bloodlust, or at least a bloodlust as strong as it is now. So... maybe the devs are like reluctant to change, but maybe that's the solution. Maybe the solution is small changes, and pushing them to try more things.
It is small changes, and then watch the ripple. All
right. Well, I think that might be the big takeaway from this talk. That they should try more stuff, and it would be great also if the devs were kind enough to let us know what the hell happened during that experiment. Wouldn't you like to know?
I'd also like to know how this MMR is working as well.
Okay. Well, we got a taste of that like a few months ago.
Yeah, that'd the old one. What is this new one about?
Dude,
they basically said that it's going to dictate who's going to win or something. Like, it's literally going to know.
Yeah, it has like predictive capabilities of knowing basically what's going to be the outcome. That's just so absurd. Yeah.
It don't make sense. Like, even in a fighting game, if your MMR is higher than someone else, it doesn't mean you're definitely going to win.
It just means that, you know, the odds are in your favor, right?
Yeah. Potentially. I mean, it depends. It depends how many matches you've had.
All right. Well, I do hope sincerely that we can use our influence, like as limited as it might be, as creators and as a community, to maybe push for that. Because I honestly think that would be good. Like, give me more tiny changes. Like, you know, Trapper resetting his traps. Raid not being seen from 20 meters. That's good. Yeah. That's really good.
They don't need to these huge things. They could just do these little things and see the ripple of them.
Well, Tru, if there's something else that you'd like to bring up or talk about, I'd love to. Maybe if we glossed over something that you'd like to chat about, but we've been at it for like about 2 hours. So we should be wrapping it up. What do you think?
Yeah, I do need to get some tweet as well, to be honest.
All right. Get your meal then. Thank you very much for agreeing to chat with me. It was good. I hope, like, I think our big disagreement on, you know, on whether 50 wins and whatever hurts the community, I think we've solved that. I think I understand your point. I hope you understand. I hope you understand that when people go for 4K streaks and stuff, it's not so much to prove like, oh my god, I can win every game, but rather, you know, I've gotten to a point where maybe I can play against average players long enough to get to this number.
But you understand how I'm thinking it's misleading people who don't understand this game. And stuff like that.
I totally understand that, but I think that we need to consider people as adults and hope that they'll be responsible enough to see through the game. If a guy escapes 300 times in a row and that's happened, that's not because survivors are busted. And if a guy gets 300 kills in a row and that's happened, it's not because killers are busted. Because they're abusing one thing, or they're playing against very average players where they themselves are very good.
Exactly. Yeah.
So like,
that's what it is. That's literally what DBD is. That's kind of how you have the fun in DBD. You get a really good killer against maybe one good survivor or two best, but usually very average, not as highly skilled survivors, and then they have fun with it. That's kind of what it is.
If I can send you off with a spicy request, it would be that you someday give that a shot. Because as you said, you know, okay, matchmaking is all over the place. You're probably playing against average players that have many hundreds of hours less than you. I would ask you if you want to give it a shot and give that to maybe try 50 wins in a row or some other number with your own conditions, maybe with whatever killer, and see what it's like. And I would also ask you if there's a challenge that you'd like me to try to maybe understand your point of view better, to name it, and I'll try it as well.
My point of view. I don't think my point of view involves challenge, sadly. My point of view is a healthier kind of push towards the game. Maybe I could think of something, I don't know.
Well, it doesn't, you know, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but if you think of something that's like, okay, you know, I'll just try this, and afterwards maybe you'll see things more my way. I would be willing to give that a shot. So that way we close the gap a little bit, bridge the gap, we come to understand each other better, and going forward, we're like one voice, so the devs can like realize that, hey, what we're saying here is not just like two dudes. Like, we probably echoing what many other people think.
The reason why we play this game so much, man. Like, we're all very passionate about it. Like, we want what's best for it, man.
Well, I'm not very good at Mortal Kombat, so I'm gonna stay playing this game probably. But
well, first be Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, I'm just joking about the fact that this game is very unique, and you don't come out of this game being good at the next game you play.
No,
so
completely different.
that's gonna be hard for us to move to another game someday. But honestly, it was a good chat.
Yeah,
it was great to do it, and I hope your community and mine appreciated it. It was
hopefully, yeah.
All right,
that we're just two people who
Kat.
kind of want what's best for the game, and you know, we have our own minds, you know.
All right. Well, lovely chatting. Many kisses to everybody, and hopefully we can have another debate some other day. And the game has moved, completely different direction, and we're talking about something more lighthearted. Have a good one, dude.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you too. Have a good one. All right, guys. I didn't say thank you for any of the subs, but I will say that because I was just mid chat, so I need to say this. But I very much appreciate it to you, amazing people. I don't know where it was. Were we really talking for like 2 hours? Fucking hell, man. Deadful, thank you for the 10 bits. WW Yat, thank you for the sub. Thank you for the 2 months. Billiard, thank you for the 51 Best Kuro, thank you for the 56 months as well. City Runner for the 38. Richie for the 5. Give it to subs. And West Coast for the 300 bits. So how are you doing, guys? Feels weird that I've ignored you for so long, because I usually chat to you guys like non-stop. I'm not really a Discord person. As I said, like, he understands that, to get a win streak, you do need to hope that you don't go against that really high caliber, or they're just going to take it from you. But you still obviously need to be good with killer, but you need to be way better than the survivors you're going against. That's kind of how it is. But it sounds like he understands that. That's what I got anyway. 5,000 hour killer would lose again. Of course it would. That's what I mean. Like, he knows what I know. He knows what we all know who have played this game for a long time. We know that if you go against a really strong team, you can't do much about it because of the gen speed. Like, it goes fast, man. It goes really, really fast. Faster than you realize. Do I have a new view after the debate? I get what he's on about with Trapper, and I get what he's on about where killers feel defenseless, so they need to get someone out because you can't do it. But that's the whole point what I'm talking about. The whole reason why killers feel defenseless is because the game's designed around ignorance. It's designed around the understanding that kills are the thing and the defining factor of how well a killer did, which isn't the case.
All right. Sorry to put you through 2 hours of this, but I think we were pretty thorough. It's kind of sad, dude. I realized that, like, other than, small differences, what the fuck do we want for this game? Exactly the same, dude. Exactly the same. And how sad is it that we despite the small differences, that we do not make our points so hard that the devs really act on them. That was a fun stream, thank you. I do feel like maybe we went over several points too many times. Maybe we nailed over the same points over and over. But that's because we didn't really, set out to, like, go from point A to point B. So we bounced back a lot. And yeah, hopefully I didn't talk too much and not let him, express all of his views. I've come out of this understanding him a little bit better. And I really hope he'll help me understand him further. But I do agree, this debate has made me realize that some of the best changes to this game that have come have been quiet changes like that. Maurice being now on the second hook. That was another great change that they just did one day. Why don't they do more stuff like that, dude? Why don't they do... like you and Tru and Really Unite. Dude, at no point during this do I feel like, okay, it's his view and my view and only one can survive. It's not like that. It's not like that. We agree on like 90%. And I don't know. I hope that this sets a trend. Like we are more united than divided in the community. But anyway. that's gonna be all. Thank you all for saying hi, YouTube, and if you're watching this from YouTube, very, very sweet of you to bother watching until the end. That being said, maybe there's something he and I missed. Do let me know what your thoughts are. I'm gonna be listening to my chat and reading my comments in the future and what it is you guys think. Righty then. So, fuck, what are we doing? Let's play some killer.